Hello and welcome back to the Happier Ever After series. Today we're talking about a moment that can feel frightening, confusing, and deeply unsettling after loss. The moment when survival stops working. Not the early days of grief, not the shock, not the chaos. At the point further down the line when the strategies that helped you get through no longer seem to help at all. If you've ever thought, I don't know how to do this anymore, what used to work just doesn't, I'm coping, but it's costing me everything, this episode is for you. And I want to say this right at the start. When survival stops working, it is not a failure, it is often a turning point. In the early stages after loss, survival is essential. Your system does what it needs to do to keep you going. You may become very functional, very practical, very focused on what needs to be done. You might keep busy, stay strong, push feelings aside, holding everything together. And for a time, this works because it has to. Survival mode is not a choice, it's a biological and emotional response to overwhelm. It narrows your focus, reduces complexity, and helps you get through the day. But survival mode is not designed to be permanent. And eventually, for many people, something begins to shift. The strategies that once kept you upright start to wobble. You may notice that you're more tired than before, that your tolerance for stress is lower, that pushing through feels harder, heavier, less sustainable. You might feel flat, numb, or irritable, or suddenly tearful in ways that surprise you. And this can be unsettling or even terrifying because the story people often tell themselves at this point is, I was coping and now I'm not, which can quickly turn into, I'm going backwards, I'm falling apart, and there's something wrong with me. I want to slow that right down. The moment is not about failing to cope, it's about the limits of survival. Survival strategies are blunt instruments. They get you through the immediate threat, but they are not designed to support a whole life. When survival stops working, it's often because your system is no longer in acute danger, and that's important. As long as your system believes the threat is ongoing, survival mode stays in place. But when there is enough internal or external safety for that mode to soften, other needs begin to surface. Needs for rest, for processing, for meaning, or integration. And survival strategies don't meet those needs. So they begin to collapse, not because they were wrong, but because their job is done. I want to say something here that many people don't hear at this stage. When coping mechanisms collapse, it doesn't mean you choose the wrong ones. It means they worked until they weren't needed anymore. That's a very different story. Let's talk about what this can look like in real life. You might have been the strong one, and suddenly you're exhausted. You might have kept yourself busy, and now you just can't summon the energy. You might have avoided feelings, and now they're arriving anyway. You might have been holding it together for everyone else, and now you just can't. And that can feel like everything is unraveling. But often, what's actually happening is that your system is saying, I can't live like this forever. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Another reason this phase is so unsettling is because it often arrives without warning. There's no clear event that triggers it, no anniversary, no obvious crisis. Just a sense that something has shifted and you don't know how to respond. This can be particularly frightening if people around you assume you're past the worst. They may be less available, less patient, less understanding, which can leave you feeling very alone with what's happening. I want to be very clear here. This phase is not regression. It's not a breakdown, and it's not a sign that you need to try harder. It's often the point where grief asks to be felt rather than managed. Survival mode keeps grief at bay because it has to. But when it softens, grief needs somewhere to go. And if it's been held back for a long time, it can feel intense when it arrives. That doesn't mean it will always feel like this. It means something is moving. I also want to name something else that can make this phase harder. Shame. People often feel ashamed when survival stops working, ashamed that they can't cope like they used to, ashamed that they're struggling again, ashamed that they need help now when they didn't before. This shame can be deeply isolating. So I want to say this plainly. Needing support at this stage, at any stage, does not mean you've failed. It means you're entering a different phase of grief, one that requires different resources. Survival is about endurance, integration is about sustainability. When you cannot build a sustainable life on survival strategies alone, this is often the moment when people begin to realize that just getting through is no longer enough. And that realization can be scary because it means change. It means listening more closely to what your body and your mind are asking for. It means slowing down when you're used to pushing on, and that can feel risky, especially if survival has become part of your identity. If you've been the one who copes, the one who manages, the one who doesn't need much, letting go of that role can feel like losing ground. Often, it's the beginning of something more honest. I want to reframe this moment as a turning point, not a dramatic one, not a sudden transformation, but a quiet pivot from how do I get through this to how do I want to live with this? That's a very different question. And it only becomes possible when survival stops being enough. Recognizing this as a turning point doesn't mean you have to act immediately. You don't need to make big decisions. You don't need to overhaul your life. You just need to notice what's no longer working and be curious about what might support you better now. That might mean more rest, more honesty, more boundaries, different support, less pressure to perform. It might mean acknowledging that the phase you're in now requires something new, and that's okay. If, as you're listening to this, you can feel the fear, relief, or recognition, pause for a moment. Notice how that feels. Where can you feel it in your body? Notice your breath. Notice that you are not broken for being here. When survival stops working, it's often because life is asking for more. It's asking for more than coping. And while that can feel frightening, it can also be the beginning of a more sustainable way of living with grief. One that doesn't rely on constant effort, one that doesn't require you to hold everything together, one that has room for your humanity. And if you've been feeling like you're coming undone, I want you to hear this. You're not coming undone. You're reaching the edge of a strategy that was never meant to carry you forever. And that edge can be the place where something new begins. If you'd like support as you navigate life after loss, you can explore the Happier Ever After Club, happiercoach.com/happier-ever-after. You don't need to go back to surviving harder. You don't need to prove how strong you are. You are allowed to need something different now. Thank you for being here with me today. I'll be with you again in the next episode.